When I opened my eyes, everything was a blinding white. The clinical coldness of the hospital walls seeped into my skin. I didn't know my name. I didn't know where I lived. I didn't even know how I got here. Then I saw him. He was standing by the window, watching the rain hit the glass. He turned around, and in his eyes was a depth of pain I had never seen before. He reached out and took my hand. His palm was warm, and his touch felt familiar, like a melody I once knew but could no longer sing. "Aria," he whispered. "You're okay." Aria. So that was my name. I looked at him and asked the one question that broke the silence. "Who are you?" He took a shaky breath, a small smile flickering on his face. "I'm Julian. I'm your husband." The doctors told me the car accident had wiped away the last 5 years of my life. When I looked into the mirror, my own face looked like a stranger's. Julian showed me old photos, the two of us laughing, traveling, seemingly perfect. But looking at them felt like looking at a movie I hadn't watched. If this man was my husband, why didn't my heart skip a beat when he smiled? Why did it only feel heavy? Julian took me home. It was a beautiful mansion, but to me, it felt like a labyrinth. Every room was curated to my tastes. Blue curtains, the scent of jasmine candles. He said he kept everything exactly how I liked it. He was so attentive, so perfect. But every corner of this house felt like it was hiding a secret I wasn't allowed to know. That night, as the rain intensified, a flash of memory struck me like lightning. I saw a blurred vision, a scream, a car sliding on a wet road, and someone shouting. But the voice wasn't Julian's. I asked him what really happened the day of the accident. He looked away, his jaw tightening. "It was a nightmare, Aria. Let's just focus on our new beginning." Julian cooked dinner for me. Everything was flawless. Later, he tried to pull me close for a dance. As he leaned in, my heart raced. But not with love. It was a primal fear. I pushed him away instinctively. For a split second, a flash of pure rage crossed his face, but he masked it instantly with a gentle smile. "I'm sorry," he said. But I couldn't stop wondering, why was he trying so hard to be the perfect man? One afternoon, while Julian was out, I found a locked drawer in his study. My gut told me the truth was inside. I managed to pry it open, and there it was, an old leather-bound diary. But just as I turned the first page, Julian's voice boomed from the doorway. "Aria, what do you think you're doing?" His voice was cold, stripped of all the tenderness he had shown me before. He snatched the diary away, claiming it was just old business records. He made me promise never to enter his study again. That night, I overheard him on the phone, his voice a low hiss. "She can't remember anything yet. Just give me a little more time." Who was he talking to? And why did he need time if I was already his wife? The doorbell rang while Julian was in the shower. A woman stood there, her eyes widening in shock when she saw me. "Aria? You're alive! We thought Julian had—" Before she could finish, Julian appeared and slammed the door in her face. He told me she was just a confused neighbor, but the look of pure terror in her eyes told a different story. I couldn't breathe, so I ran out into the rain. As the cold water hit my face, another memory surged back. A man and a woman were screaming at each other in the pouring rain. The woman, me, was crying, shouting, "Our relationship is over, Julian! I'm leaving you!" My heart stopped. If we had broken up 5 years ago, why was he telling me we were happily married? The realization that Julian had lied about our marriage felt like a physical blow. I walked back into the house, my clothes drenched, my mind spinning. Julian was waiting for me in the foyer, holding a towel. He looked so concerned, so loving. But now, his face looked like a mask. I realized then that I wasn't just recovering from an accident, I was a prisoner in a life that wasn't mine. I had to play along. I had to pretend I still didn't remember, or I might never find out the truth. Days passed in a blur of fake smiles. One morning, while Julian was at work, I climbed the narrow stairs to the attic, a place he told me was empty. Under a pile of old, dusty sheets, I found a hidden box. Inside wasn't jewelry or money, but sketches. Hundreds of them. They were drawings of me, but they weren't happy. In every sketch, I was crying or looking away. These weren't the drawings of a husband. They were the obsession of a man who couldn't let go. Tucked at the very bottom of the box was a crumpled photograph. It was taken at a park I didn't recognize. I was laughing, holding the hand of a man whose face had been aggressively scratched out with a black marker. But his hand, on his wrist, there was a unique silver watch with a blue face. A surge of warmth hit my chest, a feeling Julian never gave me. I knew this man. I loved this man. And Julian had tried to erase him from existence. I couldn't stay in that house a moment longer. I waited until I heard Julian's heavy, rhythmic breathing from the master bedroom. I grabbed my coat and the photograph, slipping out through the back door. The night air was crisp, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. I didn't know where I was going, but I remembered the name of the cafe in the background of that scratched-out photo, the Blue Velvet. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived. I sat in a corner booth, staring at the photo, praying for a miracle. Then, the bell above the door chimed. A man walked in, his shoulders slumped, looking exhausted. He sat at the counter and ordered a black coffee. When he reached for his cup, the sleeve of his jacket slid up. There it was, the silver watch with the blue face. My breath hitched. Leo? The name left my lips before I could even think. The man froze. He turned slowly, and when his eyes met mine, his coffee cup shattered on the floor. Aria? He whispered, his voice cracking. He didn't run to me like Julian did. He looked like he had seen a ghost. He told me everything. He wasn't my husband. He was the man I was going to marry the night of the accident. He told me that Julian was a business rival who had become obsessed with me, and after the crash, Julian had used his wealth to convince the hospital he was my next of kin, while Leo was out of the country. Leo wanted to take me away right then, but I was terrified. Julian had my passport, my legal documents, everything. As we sat there, a black car pulled up outside the cafe window. The headlights cut through the darkness like a predator's eyes. Julian stepped out, his face calm, but his eyes burning with a terrifying fire. He didn't look surprised to find me there. He looked disappointed. Julian didn't cause a scene. He simply walked in and put his arm around my waist, his grip bruisingly tight. "Aria, honey, you're having another episode," he said to the onlookers, playing the part of the grieving husband perfectly. He looked at Leo with a chilling smirk. "Stay away from my wife, Leo. You know what happened last time." The threat in his voice was clear. I was forced back into the car, leaving Leo standing in the rain, helpless. Back at the mansion, the atmosphere had changed. Julian didn't pretend to be the perfect husband anymore. He locked the front door and took my phone. "I did this for you, Aria," he whispered, pacing the room. "Leo would have lost you. I saved you. I gave you this life." I realized then that Julian didn't love me. He loved the idea of owning me. I wasn't his wife. I was his ultimate trophy. That night, locked in my room, the rain started again. The sound triggered a massive headache, but this time, I didn't fight it. I let the pain in. I saw the accident clearly now. I was in the car with Leo. We were happy, and then a pair of headlights followed us, ramming into our bumper over and over. It wasn't an accident. Julian had tried to kill us both that night. He didn't find me after the crash. He caused it. I woke up the next morning knowing I couldn't be the victim anymore. If Julian wanted a perfect wife, I would give him one. I walked downstairs with a fake smile, apologizing for my confusion the night before. I watched his eyes relax, his ego stroking as he believed he had broken me. But beneath the table, my hands were shaking. I wasn't just his wife anymore. I was his most dangerous enemy, and I was going to destroy him from the inside. Julian allowed me to sit in the garden, under his watchful eye. I knew Leo would be looking for me. I began wearing a specific silk scarf, a bright red one, that Leo had given me years ago, hidden in the back of my closet. It was a signal. Every day at 4 p.m., I stood by the garden gate, hoping Leo was watching through the woods. On the third day, I saw a flash of light, a reflection from a mirror. Leo was there. He was waiting. To trap Julian, I needed proof of his crimes. I began cleaning his study, acting like a devoted housewife. While he was in meetings, I searched his computer. I found a hidden folder encrypted with a password. I tried my birthday. Nothing. I tried our supposed anniversary. Nothing. Then, I tried the date of the accident. The folder clicked open. Inside were dashcam footages from a car I didn't recognize. It was the footage of Julian following us that night. He had kept it as a sick trophy. Julian surprised me by inviting his lawyer for dinner. The man, a cold-faced individual named Mr. Thorne, kept looking at me with pity. I realized Thorne knew everything. During dinner, Julian bragged about moving us to a private island in the Mediterranean next week. My heart plummeted. If he got me on that plane, I was gone forever. I had 7 days to execute my escape, or the memory in the rain would become my permanent reality. I managed to slip a note into the trash can outside during my walk, knowing Leo would find it. But as I turned around, Julian was standing there. "What was that, Aria?" he asked, his voice a low growl. He grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the trash. My heart stopped. I had thrown away a grocery list on top of the note. He pulled it out, saw the list, and his grip loosened. "Don't be so jumpy," he laughed. It was the closest I had come to being caught. In the dashcam footage, I had seen something else, a small key Julian kept in his safe. I realized it was the key to the safety deposit box where he kept our real marriage records, or rather, the lack of them. I waited until Julian was in the shower and used a piece of soap to take an impression of his safe key. It was a trick I had seen in movies, and I prayed it would work. I had to get that impression to Leo. A massive storm was predicted for the night of our departure. The sky turned a bruised purple, and the wind began to howl. Julian was frantic, packing our lives into leather suitcases. He seemed paranoid, constantly checking the security cameras. He knew Leo was close. "Nobody takes what's mine, Aria," he whispered, clutching my face. Not in this life, and not in the next. He wasn't just obsessed. He was becoming unstable. Through the mirror reflection in the woods, Leo signaled a final message. Midnight. The garden gate. Be ready. I packed a small bag with the dashcam footage I had downloaded onto a USB drive and the soap impression. I hid it inside the lining of my coat. I looked at the house one last time. The beautiful, expensive prison. I wasn't leaving behind a husband. I was leaving behind a monster. Julian insisted we have a final toast before the car arrived to take us to the airport. He poured 2 glasses of expensive wine. I saw his hand tremble slightly. As he turned to grab a napkin, I saw him drop a small white pill into my glass. My blood ran cold. He didn't want a wife anymore. He wanted a doll he could carry onto the plane. I waited for him to look away and swapped the glasses with a trembling hand. We sat in silence as we finished the wine. Within 10 minutes, Julian's eyes began to heavy. He looked at me, confused, trying to speak, but his words were slurred. Aria, what did you... He slumped over the mahogany table, unconscious. The predator was finally asleep. I grabbed my bag, took the keys from his pocket, and ran into the pouring rain. I didn't look back until I reached the gate, where 2 headlights were waiting. I sprinted toward the garden gate, the mud clinging to my boots and the freezing rain blinding me. Leo was there, waiting. He pulled me into the car and we sped away just as the mansion's security sirens began to wail. Julian's guards had found him. I've got you, Aria, Leo whispered, gripping my hand. As I looked back, the mansion, my gilded prison, faded into the darkness of the storm. On the highway, blinding high beams suddenly appeared behind us. Julian was awake, and he was driving like a madman. He began ramming our bumper, trying to force us off the road, exactly like he did 5 years ago. Leo steered us toward the old city harbor. It was a deadly race at 90 miles per hour, and the USB drive in my pocket was the only thing that could end this nightmare. We reached the edge of the pier, trapped between the churning ocean and Julian's SUV. He stepped out, his face twisted with obsession. You belong to me, Aria, he roared. But I didn't back down. I held up the USB drive and shouted over the thunder. You stole my past, Julian, but you will never touch my future. In that moment, the distance was filled with the screaming sirens of the police. The police surrounded the harbor. I handed over the footage, the undeniable proof that Julian had caused my accident to claim me. As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, the predator finally looked small. The arrogance in his eyes vanished, replaced by a hollow silence. For the first time since I woke up in that hospital bed, the heavy weight on my chest was gone. I was finally free. 3 months later, the rain is falling again, but I'm no longer afraid. My memories may never fully return, but I trust the man standing by my side. Leo and I are building something new, not based on shadows, but on truth. Julian tried to erase me, but he only made me stronger. My name is Aria, and I am finally the author of my own story.